The wake-up call on WBAI 99.5 FM.
And now, stay with us as we get into another edition of Despueto Boricua with Ben Ramos.
Bienvenidos. Welcome, brothers and sisters. You're listening to Despierta Boricua, Despierta Puedo. I'm your host, Benjamin Ramos of the Pro Libertad Freedom Campaign, and I'll be bringing you the latest updates on Puerto Rican politics and culture from La Isla de Puerto Rico and throughout the Puerto Rican diaspora. On today's segment, we're going to be talking about the film Machetero. Machetero stars Isaac de Bancolé, who plays a French journalist who comes to New York to interview a Puerto Rican terrorist in prison about his decision to use violence as a means to free his people. Also starring Dilcia Pagan, a former Puerto Rican political prisoner, not-for-profit of the band Reconstruction, and Kelvin Fernandez in his first starring role, Machetero has engendered political discussion and debate within and outside of the Puerto Rican diaspora and has been called one of the most important and insightful underground political films ever made. Machetero is one of several films featured in the New York Latino Film Festival this weekend. With us today to talk more about this film is writer and director Vagabond. Welcome to Despierta Boricua, Vagabond.
Thanks very much for having me.
Vagabond, give us a quick synopsis of what this film is about.
Well, a French journalist who's played by Isaac, as you said, comes to interview a so-called Puerto Rican terrorist in prison about his decision to use violence as a means of liberation. The so-called terrorist is played by Not-for-Profit, who is the lead singer of Reconstruction and also the MC in a hip-hop group called Ex-Vandals. That he's one half of that group. The other half of the group is DJ Johnny Juice, who's also Puerto Rican and is the DJ for Public Enemy. But he plays the terrorist, and Isaac and he sort of have a tete-a-tete, a toe-to-toe conversation about the use of violence as a means of liberation. And while that's going on, another ghetto youth is growing up in the street trying to survive the violence of imperialism, and he's growing up to become the next machetero. And so the film is really about cycles of violence and how they are completely perpetrated, and the thesis of the film is that as victims of violence, as victims of imperialist violence, it is not our responsibility to stop using violence. It's the responsibility of the perpetrators to stop using violence.
Now, what inspired you to produce this film? I mean, the themes and the topics are really heavy. What inspired you to put this piece out?
Part of it was I wanted to talk about terrorists and terrorism in a post-9/11 world. I felt that there wasn't as much of a discussion that was going on, at least here in the United States, about those questions. And my grandfather, who was a very staunch independentista, a supporter of Puerto Rican independence, used to say that one man's terrorist is another man's revolutionary. I'm not saying that what happened on September 11th has anything to do with revolution. I'm just saying that what happened was the United States government took that situation and started to paint everybody with a very broad brush. And so what happened was everybody got dumped in the same basket. And so I wanted to make those distinctions, and I used this film to say that. I also felt that because people were already polarized by the whole 9/11 situation, I needed to use another example or another situation that people weren't maybe as familiar with, which is the colonization of Puerto Rico, to maybe open up a dialogue, begin a discussion, get people to think about things a little bit differently.
Now, when we look at Machetero, I mean, again, heavy political themes throughout. What has been the reception of this film? Because whenever we talk about colonialization, the independence issue for Puerto Ricans, we start polarizing ourselves. We go to all these different extremes and all these different political perspectives. What has the reception been for you?
Well, we've been screening the film all over the world. We started last June in Hollywood, in Beverly Hills of all places, in the screening at the Hollywood Black Film Festival. Then we went on to South Africa. From there we went to Egypt, in Cairo. Just in June last month I was in Wales and in England, and now we're screening here in New York. And we've won awards in South Africa, Wales, England. Last week the film played in Thailand. I wasn't there, but it played in Thailand, and we won another award in Thailand. And the reception has really been one, that people are, they don't really know about the colonial situation of Puerto Rico. They don't have an understanding of it, but that this film is a good place to start, I guess, for them. And now they're aware of the situation. A lot of people come to me and say to me, but I thought Puerto Rico was free. They participate in the Olympics and, that kind of a thing. Nobody knew that they were a colony of the United States. So that's been most of the reaction, at least internationally. Within the United States and within the Puerto Rican diaspora, of course, it's very polarizing, but the situation itself is polarizing. I think that what I'm trying to do is trying to create a dialogue and trying to let people know that there needs to be more dialogue. I think that Puerto Ricans don't discuss the independence issue enough, and I think that when we discuss it from a point of view of attacking one another, rather than a point of view that I think that I'm of the belief that statehooders, people who believe in the status quo, and independentistas are all coming from a point in which they all want to take care of Puerto Ricans. It's my opinion that at least two of those views are misguided, but their hearts are in the right place, and I think that all Puerto Ricans are looking out for all Puerto Ricans. There's just these differences. I'm of the belief that we need to be free, and I believe in the independence issue, and I think that issue would take care of more Puerto Ricans and solve more of our problems than statehood or our current dilemma, which is essentially colonialism. The United States likes to call it free associated state.
I think our community also has this fear of discussing the issue of armed revolutionary struggle. I think our folks have come from a perspective where they're terrified of the idea of picking up arms. We understand it intellectually, but I think so much repression and so much things have gone down that there's a fear of it. So when we bring out something like this film where there's a deep political discussion on it, it really scares folks. Would you agree?
Yes, I do. I think that at the center of it, Puerto Ricans are very peace-loving people who are willing to live and let live. One of the reasons that I made the film and chose Puerto Rico is because for people who love peace and who love to just live and let live, what drives certain people within the Puerto Rican diaspora to take up violence, to free ourselves from the condition that we suffer underneath. And I think that's the scary part. I think the scary part really is that as much as we love to live in peace, that just below that surface there is a wellspring, a deep wellspring of anguish and pain and bitterness that if we don't keep it contained, I mean, Filiberto Del Rio said, there's a quote at the very beginning of the film. It's very complicated. I can't remember it completely, but the United States is essentially, I'll paraphrase it, saying that the United States has essentially created a Puerto Rican whose violence, if released, would be uncontrollable. And I think that deep down below all Puerto Ricans, there's this anguish and pain that has come from colonialism and imperialism that if we pierce the veneer of it, we're afraid of what we'll do. We're afraid of what will come afterwards.
As we're wrapping up, Vagabond, tell us, the film is in the New York Latino Film Festival. Where can we see it, and how did you get into the festival?
The strange thing is that I was in the festival 10 years ago with another film about Puerto Rico called Reconstructing Vieques, which was a documentary that featured Reconstruction, which did the soundtrack for this film, about the situation in Vieques. And we shot that in 1999, and we were in the first New York International Latino Film Festival. Our screening was sold out, and people actually came out of the screening in tears, some at the sadness of what we've been, some of the things that we've been talking about. And so I know Calixto. I've known Calixto, who's the executive director of the festival. I called him and told him, we were ready to screen, and he said, great, I would love to have you. And so that's how we got into the festival. The festival, you can catch the film at 23rd Street and 8th Avenue at the Clearview Cinemas Chelsea. That's 260 West 23rd Street. And it's at 10 o'clock on Saturday, August 1st.
Please remember that this program is supported by the listener members of WBAI New York. If you like what you hear, please consider becoming a member of WBAI or renewing if you've already joined. Basic membership is $25, but we accept any amount. Help us keep free speech alive.